In this video, we're going to import episodes of a podcast RSS feed in Airtable. For each episode, we'll import some details like the title and description, as well as the actual MP3 files into an attachment field in Airtable. The first thing you need to do is to go to the Airtable app marketplace and install the free data fetcher app. Once you've installed it in your base, sign up for a free data fetcher account or sign into your existing account. Then click on Create Your First Request, and for application select Custom. Then change the name of your request to Fetch Episodes, and next we need to add the URL for the podcast feed. So this will depend on which podcast you want to import, but I'm going to use the More or Less podcast from the BBC, and you can see here they've got an RSS link. So I'm going to right click on that and copy the link, and then paste that into the URL field in Data Fetcher. So once you're happy with that, check the output table and view is where you want to import the episodes into, and then click Save and Run in the bottom right. Then click Continue, and Data Fetcher is going to connect to that podcast RSS feed and then show us a preview of all the fields that we get back. So we can see we've got quite a few different fields and they're all going to be imported by default. So I'm just going to filter them all out by clicking Filter All here. And then what you want to do is search for item, and that's going to give us the actual episode item fields. And you can see we've got a few different ones here. So one of the most important ones is probably the title, and so we're going to import that and we're going to map it to our existing name field. We're also going to keep the description, and we're going to let that be mapped to a new field, and we can change that to description. And then scrolling to the right, you can see a few others. We've got this pub date here, so let's keep that and change the type of the field that's created to a date time field. And then scrolling to the right, you can see we've got a duration field as well, which will be mapped to a number, and that's the number of seconds that the podcast lasts. So then if you keep scrolling to the right, you'll eventually see a field called GUID. And this is like a unique ID for each episode, so this is an important one to keep. So we'll let that be mapped to a new field. And then a little bit further along, you'll see one called link, and we'll map that to a URL field. So that's the URL for each episode. So we can click on one of those and see a URL. And just to the right of that, you'll see one called media content $URL. So these are the actual MP3 files that come back for each episode. And so we want to include that one as well. And rather than mapping that to a link field, let's map it to an attachment field. So once you've got all of those and any other fields you want, click Save and Run in the bottom right. And Data Fetcher is going to create those new fields for us in our output table, and then run the request and connect to the podcast feed and import all the episodes, and you can see it's creating 300 records. So here you can see we've got the title is mapped to that name field. We've got all the other fields with the types that we set, and then on the right hand side here we've got the actual MP3 files as an attachment field. And you can see we can actually play that right in Airtable. So going back to Data Fetcher, there's one last thing we need to do, which is close this and then open the advanced settings, and for the update based on field, select the GUID field, that unique ID field, and click Save. And that just means that the podcast will kind of be kept in sync with those that are in the feed, and any new ones will be added, but we won't get duplicates because it'll be able to match them using that unique ID field. Finally, if you want to schedule this to run automatically, you can upgrade to a paid Data Fetcher account and enable schedule this request, set a schedule you want to run it on, and click Save.